Okay, hi students. I'd like to talk to you a little bit about what I know about the Hundred Years' War between England and France. As you can see, it's not exactly 100 years. The historians are looking back trying to figure out a name for this war, and since it lasted around 100 years, they decided to call it the Hundred Years' War. It actually was 116 years before the final truce took place, although it basically was just four major wars with many truces in between. And it wasn't like they fought for the entire 116 years. They'd fight for, 5 or 6 years and then take, 10 years off. And then fight for another, 7 or 8 years and then take 4 years off or something like that. Why are these wars significant? Well, the first thing is it gave both the French and the English strong feelings of nationalism and also a little bit of separation between each other because until this time, a lot of the English kings and queens were related to the French kings and queens, and many of them controlled land. Many of the English kings and queens controlled land in France, and vice versa. We know about William the Conqueror, who was from Normandy, which is in France, going into England and conquering England. So there was a lot of back and forth conquering between the two, and also, these royal families were related, and a lot of interbreeding was taking place between these families to keep the bloodlines. But after 1453, you see a separation between England and France and this strong feeling of national pride. Also, during these wars, it gave an introduction of newer weapons and tactics. Knights and heavy cavalry became obsolete at the end of the Hundred Years' War because of an invention that came from China known as gunpowder. The French population was decimated, actually worse than decimated during these wars. Are you ready for this? Their entire population was reduced by 2/3. I'm not making a mistake there. I'm saying 2/3. The French lost 2/3 of their population because of the Hundred Years' War. And not only because of just war, but also because of epidemics such as the bubonic plague, which happened to strike them right around the same time, and then also famine and drought. And at the very end, England lost all of their control over France. England had regions in the northern part of France and the southern part of France under their control, and they did not have those anymore after the Hundred Years' War. One of the major weapons in the Hundred Years' War is this weapon. It is known as the crossbow. This would be known as the shotgun of the Middle Ages. This would be very powerful and deadly from a very close range, and it was so powerful that the Catholic Church decided to ban its use against fellow Christians. Well, yes, and you heard that right. No, you could use it against Muslims or, I guess, non-Christian people, but you weren't allowed to use it against fellow Christians. So, thank you, great Catholic Church, for saying that you can't kill fellow Christians with it. All right. And also, the bad thing about the longbow is that some of them, the very, very powerful ones, needed a winch or a pulley system to load. Even the ones that you fired that you could load by hand and fire very quickly, it oftentimes took somebody to sit down on the ground and put their feet inside the curved part of this, and then use their big lat muscles and back, muscles to push. And it's called to span the crossbow. And when we look a little bit further into this blend space, you will see some videos of a guy that's showing you how to span the medieval crossbow. The French knights were using this, and they had a lot of success during the first parts of the war against England. They had more people than the English did, first of all, and second of all, they were fighting on their home turf most of the time. But the English invented a weapon that ended up trumping the crossbow, and it's known as the longbow. And here's a picture of the English longbow. And if the crossbow was the shotgun of the Middle Ages, this would be considered more of the artillery piece of the Middle Ages. It could be fired extremely quickly, double the rate of the crossbow. It would shoot much, much further than the crossbow, and what some people didn't like about the longbow is that it provided an anonymous kill, and it was sort of against the rules of chivalry. The rules of chivalry have you looking in the guy's eyes when you kill him, or making sure it's a fair fight. And if you think about it, really, if an army's marching on a position and archers are just lobbing arrows up into the air and they're coming down and killing people on the battlefield, it is kind of like an unchivalrous kind of way. And I know that there's that saying that all's fair in love and war, and believe me, I'm with you on this too. If I have a chance to win a battle by, not following the exact rules of chivalry. I'm probably going to want to try to keep my guys alive and do that. But, some people didn't like it because it was this, like, I guess, not a very manly way to kill somebody, just, lobbing arrows into the air and letting gravity do their work. One of the interesting things about longbow archers is that remains of longbow archer skeletons have been found with bone spurs on their fingers from firing so many times, and also overdeveloped draw shoulders. So, if you're a right-handed or a left-handed archer, your shoulder that you pull back with, the bones they found with the skeletons of the English longbowmen were overdeveloped, that side of their body. So, you can see the stress and the strain that it would have had on an archer to be able to fire this thing. Well, things are going great for the French until the longbow is invented. And there's a battle that takes place in a French city known as Crécy. As you can see, it's pretty far north in France. It's near the English Channel. And they were being attacked by the English. The English army was led by King Edward III. By King Edward III, and they had the high ground, although they had a lesser amount of troops. The French army had 3 times the amount. They had 36,000 troops, and they were led by their king, Philip VI. And when this battle took place, you can see when it happened. It happened in 1346. So, like, if we're thinking about Thomas's character from the Ramsay Scallop, Thomas would be probably either dead or probably would not be able to fight at this point, because the year turns 1300, right? And he was 22 then, so yeah, 22 to 46. He'd be about 68 years old. So if he would still be alive, he still would be too young to fight. Let's see when the 100 Years' War started. 1337. That puts Thomas at 2259. That puts Thomas at 59 years old. Probably still would have been too old to fight in the 100 Years' War. So this Battle of Crécy, things were going so badly for the English that the king, Edward II, and his 12,000 men felt that this was going to be the end in August of 1346. And the thing that he had going for him is he had the longbow, and he also had the high ground, and it had rained the night before. And so if you can imagine these dark blue areas being the English and being on top of a hill, and the red troops are the French troops, and they are marching up this hill. Well, the best thing that happened for the English was that there had been a deluge the night before. It had rained a bunch, and these knights that were carrying these heavy crossbows and covered in armor marching up this hill kept slipping and falling. Their horses kept falling, and these men were skewered by the English longbowmen. The French king, Philip VI, ordered 16 charges up this hill. 16 failed charges. Some of the people got stuck in the mud. Some of the French knights actually drowned in the mud because their armor was so heavy. They were knocked down and injured, and they drowned face down in the in the mud. Sorry, yeah, probably a lot of blood too. But after 16 failed charges, the French finally retreated. Get ready for the death toll on both sides. Remember, the English only had 12,000 to start off with, and the French had 36,000. The English only lost 102 men, and only 2 of those were knights. The French lost almost 14,000 knights and over 10,000 infantry, a total of 23,853 total French warriors killed in this battle. So the English lost 102, and the French lost 23,000, almost 24,000 men. What an overwhelming victory for the English. There was another battle a couple years later at a place called Agincourt. Same kind of result. The English longbow ended up telling the tale against the French crossbow. And it's really, the longbow turns the tide of this war. The English start, taking French cities, and they end up really pretty much having control over big chunks of France until a hero comes along for the French, and not really a hero, a heroine, which is a female hero, and her name is Joan of Arc, and I'll talk about her in the next video that I post. So, basic information about the 100 Years' War. French versus English lasted 116 years. It gave them both a sense of nationalism, and it proved that the longbow was superior to the crossbow. All right, that's it. Thanks.